Welcome back, my silent and deadly assassins. All right, so I got another D2 video here, and I want to briefly kind of talk about maybe some gameplay improvements, or really just weapon improvements and just general build improvements, because we've seen really D2 kind of change a lot. Destiny 2 has changed a lot over the past couple of years, especially since the introduction of Stasis and the 3.0 subclasses that was originally introduced with Stasis. But then obviously the light subclasses went through that, and now we have Strand that just released with Lightfall. But there is an issue that's kind of, I think it's kind of starting to show itself a little bit. And Bungie's even been trying to help a certain damage type in the game, and that's really kinetic weapons. So really kind of one of the things I want to talk about is, you know, what's the benefit of kinetic weapons currently, and then really maybe what should Bungie do in the future about kinetic weapons. And one of those things, I think they should kind of maybe transition them over to the elemental damage type, but it is just a situation that I don't find myself using kinetic weapons. And I was kind of thinking a lot about this kind of towards the end of last expansion cycle, last 6 months or so, is yeah, I don't really use kinetic weapons a whole lot, especially primary kinetic weapons. Now, we'll talk about specials here in just a second as well, but just taking a look at basically the mods on the armor, right? There's no benefit really to slotting kinetic mods. Like, you can got kinetic siphon here for 2 power. Here's the problem is most kinetic weapons that I use are going to be special ammo, and I'm not going to be trying to add clear or get multiple kills with them. So that's kind of where I'm kind of at a distaste for using the 2 energy costs on the kinetic siphon mod here. But some of the others, especially the ones that have a lot more to do with ammo, like if you just take a look at the ammo ones, I'm not going to slot in a kinetic reserves, right? We do not have any kinetic heavies in the game. Now, I'm not saying Bungie introduced kinetic heavies into the game. I really would rather not see that, just because they still wouldn't blend well with our subclass in the 3.0 and build crafting. So why would I pick this kinetic reserves mod at a 3 over something that blends well or combines well with my subclass, or given whatever the artifact bonuses are for the season? Even here, looking at scavenger mods, there are 3. So again, why would I pick this? Kinetics only go in the kinetic weapon slot. The kinetic reserves and scavenger mods do not benefit you in any way for heavy ammo, and that's what most people are going to use them for, right? Most people are going to use them for the heavy, the power weapon slot. So this is where Bungie, I think, just convert all of the kinetics over to some elemental type, right? And I mean, they can randomly do it. Probably gonna have to handpick maybe some of the exotics, because if some of them get into certain subclasses, they can be a little potent, like Huckleberry. If Huckleberry was on Void, oh my gosh, it would be so great. Actually, I would probably love that even better. But this kind of leads to another point, is I would actually like to see them combine the kinetic weapons slot and the energy weapon slot, and allow us, the gamers, to pick any weapons that meet the primary and special ammo requirements to slot into the first 2 slots. That way, if we're trying to do like an all void build or an all strand build, we don't have to have a weapon that's off, right? If I slot this round robin here, and let's say I had a strand heavy, I can't put a strand weapon in the middle slot here. Like, I have to have a solar void or arc weapon. There's nothing I can do about that. It is just a situation where it's like, I would like to have builds where maybe I'm fully invested into the strand, or I'm fully invested in a void, solar, etc. It just gets into a situation where you are going to have one weapon that is not fully in sync with your build, and it just makes kinetic weapons into a really difficult space. Another thing about weapons, because if you take into account what they've been doing here recently, right? They've just recently given a buff to primaries kinetic weapons, right? They just got a 10% buff. I think their damage multiplier is now at a 1.15, so it's basically a 15% damage bonus over other kinetic ammo types. So if you compared a lightweight frame kinetic pulse rifle to a void lightweight frame pulse rifle, the kinetic frame would do about 15% more damage than the void. So that's one way that they're trying to keep them relevant in the game, because they know this, that people are not using them as much because they're not as much benefit. They don't sync well. They don't play well with our 3.0 subclasses and our build crafting. They just don't. It's a completely different game and system now from when they introduced kinetic weapons. Here's the other thing, is they introduced kinetic trimmers. Now, I'm not going to say kinetic trimmers is a bad trait. It's not. It's actually pretty strong and pretty powerful. This is the best roll of a battle scar that I've gotten. It's not really going to address the problem. I'm not going to pick this battle scar with kinetic trimmers over another primary weapon that's void or that syncs well with my 3.0 subclass, especially if you're running like volatile rounds or something like that. I'm going to take something that leans more into the volatile rounds in the energy slot. So this is just where I think it probably just is time to kind of convert the kinetic weapons over to an elemental weapon burn. That way, one, they can probably just easily make all weapons the same damage. They don't have to give kinetics an extra 15%, and then allow us then to build into our builds even more by, you know, just kind of getting rid of, you know, Destiny 2 base. Actually, this even goes back to Destiny 1 even, but it's just a situation that, you know, I would really like for them to go away from the old system and lean more into the new system, because the 3.0 and the build crafting is, oh my gosh, it's so much fun. It's crazy to see the builds that come out. And, you know, the cool thing about the builds in the 3.0 system is people do builds that I never even thought about doing, you know, and that's kind of the cool part about it, is just how hard you can lean into the 3.0 system. So if Bungie was to take the kinetic weapons, kind of remove them out of the game, but probably just moreover convert them over to the 5 elements that we already have in the game: solar, arc, void, strand, stasis. Assuming we get a 6-1 with the final shape, you know, maybe convert some of them over to the final shape element type. But I do think it's just a situation where it's probably time to just go ahead and remove the old system of kinetic weapons. And you see the kinetic weapon slot, and this is why, you know, just remove the kinetic weapons slot, remove the energy weapon slots, call them primary, secondary, and then allow us to pick any weapon that we want in these 2 slots that meets the kinetic and special ammo type. And that way we can have weapons that fit into our build with more harmony and ease of use. Anyways, that's about all I really want to talk about. Just kinetic weapons are just in a really weird spot. I know they're trying to give them buffs, but with the kinetic ammo mods that we have on armor, and they don't sync well with the 3.0 system and build crafting as well into, you know, different builds and stuff like that, I think it's just a great time to kind of just go in a new direction and just get rid of kinetic weapons and go into the direction of the 3.0 system, build crafting, and things working in harmony together, as far as like grenades, melees, and your weapons kind of all kind of in tune and working. So that's kind of just where I'm at with it. There's also no kinetic heavies in the game, so no real benefit to kind of slot some of those mods. And even if there was, it still might not be enough, because they still wouldn't synchronize and work as well with our subclasses, and that still would be the problem. That would still be a problem. So this is where I think they should just go the route of converting the kinetic weapons, or what we've known as kinetic weapons, over to, you know, the elemental types. And let's just go in the new direction. Just go in the new direction. Jump headfirst into the pool. That's just what I would like to see out of the game, because there are a lot of great weapons in the kinetics, or that are kinetics, but we just don't use them as much. Like, I don't really see builds around kinetic weapons, like, at all. I know Osteostriga and Necrotic Grips is a great build that pairs well together. Outside of that, there's not many. So be silent and be deadly.